Imagine a king who fights his own battles. Wouldn't that be a sight?
Hey guys, welcome back to Mythic Recap, where we dive deep into the most captivating movie storylines. Today, we're unraveling the epic tale of Troy, a story of gods, heroes, and the fate of nations. Get ready because this isn't just a recap, it's a journey into ancient legends filled with betrayal, glory, and heartbreak. Make sure to watch till the end because the twists in this tale are as shocking as they are legendary. For years, the kingdoms of ancient Greece were locked in endless conflict. But then, King Agamemnon of Mycenae, a man driven by ambition and a thirst for power, rose to unify them. Under his iron fist, a lute alliance was forged, bringing the warring sense together. Only one kingdom remained outside his grasp, Thessaly. Agamemnon, ever the conqueror, set his sights on it, leading his vast army to its borders, determined to add it to his ever-growing list of conquests. The air was thick with anticipation, the clash of swords and the cries of battle seemed inevitable.
And the Arcadians, and the Achaeans.
King Troilus of Thessaly, a wise ruler, sought to avoid needless bloodshed and prevent further unnecessary carnage.
Let's settle this war in the old manner. Your best fighter against.
And if my man wins?
We'll leave Thessaly for good. But Thessaly falls under my command. I'm a generous man. If mine wins, you can keep your throne.
He proposed a duel. The strongest warrior from each side would determine the conflict's outcome. A single combat to spare thousands.
Boagrius!
Troilus summoned the giant Boagrius, a formidable champion whose very presence struck fear into the hearts of men. Agamemnon, in turn, called upon a name whispered in legends, a warrior whose prowess was almost mythical.
Achilles!
Achilles, a warrior considered a demigod, gifted with superhuman strength and agility, a force of nature on the battlefield. But Achilles, a man who walked his own path, driven by a desire for personal glory rather than loyalty to any king, was nowhere to be found.
Where is he?
Achilles is not with the army. I sent a boy to look for him.
An indignant Agamemnon dispatched a messenger to retrieve him, his patience wearing thin. Achilles, though despising Agamemnon and his insatiable hunger for power, agreed to fight, driven by his desire for eternal fame, a name that would echo through history. He arrived on the battlefield, a figure of sheer power and grace, his armor gleaming under the sun. With effortless precision, he dodged Boagrius' clumsy spears, a blur of motion, and defeated him with a single decisive blow, securing Agamemnon's dominion over Thessaly. King Troilus, awestruck by Achilles' unparalleled prowess, offered him the scepter of Thessaly, a symbol of submission to deliver to his king. But Achilles, with a defiant glare that challenged the very notion of kingship, declared,
He's not my king.
"I have no king," and walked away, leaving a stunned Agamemnon in his wake, his authority subtly undermined. Meanwhile, in the opulent halls of Sparta, a fragile peace hung in the air. Prince Hector of Troy, a noble and honorable warrior, and his younger brother Paris, a man of impulsive passions, were guests of King Menelaus, discussing a delicate peace agreement. But Paris, blinded by forbidden desire, snuck away to be with Helen, Menelaus' stunning wife, with whom he was having a clandestine affair, a secret that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their world. After their illicit rendezvous, Paris, with persuasive words, convinced Helen to flee with him to Troy, abandoning her husband and her home. Hector, ever the honorable warrior, was deeply suspicious of his brother's actions. He confronted Paris, his voice laced with a stern warning.
You do understand why we're in Sparta.
If he endangered Troy, if his reckless actions brought ruin upon their city, he would take his beautiful face off his pretty skull.
I will rip your pretty face from your pretty skull.
Despite Hector's dire warnings, Paris, with a mixture of defiance and youthful arrogance, revealed Helen's presence on board their ship while sailing back to Troy.
I must show you something.
Hector was obviously upset, his face a mask of frustration and concern, but it was too late. Helen was aboard, a living symbol of the insult to Sparta, and the die was cast, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to unimaginable tragedy. When Menelaus discovered Helen's betrayal, his fury knew no bounds. His heart, once filled with love, now burned with a desire for vengeance. He sought out his elder brother, Agamemnon, a man who understood the language of power and retribution, demanding his help in fighting against Troy.
I want her back so I can kill her with my own two hands.
And an insult to me is an insult to all Greeks.
The supposedly impregnable city. Agamemnon, ever the opportunist, saw this as more than just a family dispute. He saw an opportunity to expand his empire, to dominate the Aegean Sea, and he readily accepted. Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, known for his strategic mind, was tasked with the crucial mission of persuading Achilles to join their cause. He found Achilles training with his inexperienced young cousin, Patroclus, a bond of kinship that Achilles held dear. Achilles, initially reluctant to fight for a king he despised, was swayed only after his divine mother, Thetis, a sea nymph, appeared to him, assuring him that his name would be remembered forever, even if he died in the war. His motivation was not loyalty to Agamemnon or Menelaus, but the pursuit of immortality, a legacy that would transcend his mortal life.
They will write stories about your victories for thousands of years. For your glory walks hand in hand with your doom.
Hector, Paris, and Helen returned to a warm, yet uneasy, welcome in Troy. King Priam, their father, a man of compassion, accepted Helen, praising her beauty, perhaps underestimating the storm she brought with her.
Welcome.
Hector, however, harbored deep doubts about their chances against the Greeks, his strategic mind foreseeing the immense challenges ahead. But Priam, with unwavering faith in the divine, believed the gods would aid them, a belief that would prove to be both a comfort and a delusion. Troy's strength lay in his thick, tall walls, a formidable defense that had earned it the reputation of being impregnable. Agamemnon's vast army, a sea of bronze and steel, escorted by Achilles and his fierce Myrmidons, approached the Trojan beaches, their presence a dark omen. Achilles, ever protective, concerned for Patroclus' safety, ordered him to stay on the ship, away from the impending bloodshed. Both Achilles and Hector, leaders of men, rallied their troops, their voices echoing with determination, preparing for the inevitable brutal clash that would decide the fate of their nations. The Myrmidons, being faster rowers, were the first to reach the Trojan shores, a vanguard of destruction. Achilles and his men, a whirlwind of unstoppable force, single-handedly defeated the Trojan warriors, cutting a bloody path to the temple of Apollo. Disregarding the solemn warnings of Aedorus, the leader of the Myrmidons, not to anger the gods, Achilles, in an act of brazen rebellion and contempt for the divine, decapitated the statue of Apollo, a sacrilege that would have dire consequences. Prince Hector, witnessing the desecration and the slaughter of his men, launched a desperate counterattack, confronting Achilles in the temple. But Achilles, seeing no glory in a private duel, no audience to witness his triumph,
Why did you come here?
They'll be talking about this war for 1,000 years.
allowed Hector to leave, securing the Greek foothold on the beaches. Achilles returned to his tent, where he found Briseis, a priestess from the temple of Apollo and cousin to Paris and Hector, captured by his men. She bravely scolded him for his sacrilege, for destroying the temple and offending Apollo. But Achilles, holding a deep disdain for the deities, claimed to know them better, his arrogance fueled by his immense power. He soon grew fond of Briseis, a tenderness emerging from his hardened warrior's heart. However, Agamemnon, in a cruel display of power,
Leave us.
and to further assert his dominance, ordered Briseis brought to him for his own pleasure, tearing her away from Achilles and leaving him absolutely furious. Achilles, his eyes blazing with rage, threatened Agamemnon, drawing his sword, ready to unleash his wrath.
Too many people have died today. I don't want anyone dying for me.
But Briseis, with remarkable courage, pleaded for an end to the bloodshed, saying she didn't want anyone to die because of her. Though Achilles sheathed his sword, the insult festered. Agamemnon,
Tonight?
further provoking him, stated that Briseis would satisfy him at night. Even more infuriated by this blatant disrespect, Achilles swore to Agamemnon that before his time was over, he would look at Agamemnon's lifeless body and smile. Then, with a final contemptuous glare, he left, his rage a simmering volcano. That night, within the besieged walls of Troy, King Priam and his counselors gathered, their faces etched with worry, debating their chances against the relentless Greeks.
And I don't want to see another Trojan die because of me. It is a dispute between two men.
Paris, burdened by the immense guilt of having started this devastating war, offered a desperate solution. He would personally challenge Menelaus, to a one-on-one combat the next morning, hoping it would end the conflict and secure Helen's return and the city's safety. Priam, seeing a glimmer of hope, encouraged his son, urging him to fight for love, and presented him with a sword of Troy, a sacred relic said to contain the very history of their nation, believing it would grant him victory. Hector, meanwhile, spoke with his beloved wife Andromache, her eyes filled with fear and sorrow. She pleaded with him not to fight anymore, reminding him that she needed him, that their baby son needed him, to raise their child. He insisted that he wouldn't fight, that Paris would bear the burden. However, she contradicted him, her voice filled with a painful truth, arguing that 50,000 Greeks had not crossed the ocean just to see Paris fight and decide the war. She spoke of her own losses, mentioning that she had lost 7 brothers in the wars against Sparta and couldn't bear to lose him too. Hector, his heart heavy with the weight of his responsibilities, went out to think, seeking solace in the quiet corridors. There, he spotted a hooded figure and, pursuing it, discovered it was Helen, attempting to escape the city, overwhelmed by guilt. She felt responsible for the countless Trojan warriors who had died that day. But Hector, with his characteristic compassion, explained that she was now a princess of Troy, and returning to Menelaus would not end the conflict. The war had grown far beyond her.
Menelaus will kill him. I can't ask anyone to fight for me.
You're a princess of Troy now.
The next day, with some Trojan soldiers waiting nearby and King Priam with Helen watching from the top of the wall, a tense silence fell over the battlefield. Hector and Paris met Menelaus and Agamemnon outside the walls of Troy. Achilles, still furious at losing Briseis, watched from a nearby hill with his troops, a silent, brooding presence. Menelaus, his face contorted with anger, demanded Helen's return, and Agamemnon, ever the conqueror, demanded Troy's submission. Hector, however, boldly rejected this, his defiance unwavering. Paris, hoping to spare his city, offered to face Menelaus one-on-one, believing it would end the conflict. Agamemnon, caring little for Menelaus's personal vengeance, declared that they would attack Troy regardless, but gave Menelaus the chance for personal satisfaction.
Accept your challenge, and tonight I'll drink to your bones.
The two prepared, and after some combat advice from his brother, Paris began his duel with Menelaus. However, Menelaus, experienced in battle and accustomed to killing, struck fiercely and quickly gained the upper hand over Paris, his blows relentless. He eventually left Paris lying on the ground, securing his victory. But before Menelaus could deliver the killing blow, Paris, in a moment of desperation, crawled quickly to Hector's feet, no longer wanting to fight. Menelaus demanded his complete victory by killing Paris, but Hector, his loyalty to his brother absolute, said he couldn't allow that. In a swift, decisive move, trying to strike Paris, Hector quickly eliminated Menelaus instead, a shocking turn of events. Agamemnon, seeing this, became absolutely furious and immediately ordered his army to attack. Hector quickly sent his wounded brother back into the city and gathered his troops, preparing for the onslaught. Achilles, still observing from the mountaintop, watched the chaos unfold, insulting Agamemnon's inability to control his troops, attacking haphazardly without a clear strategy, completely disregarding the archers on the walls. In the ensuing battle, Hector, a brilliant strategist and a formidable warrior, managed to kill many Greek soldiers with his cunning tactics, including Ajax, one of the fiercest Greek warriors, proving to be the strongest warrior of Troy. Many other Greek soldiers died, their bodies littering the battlefield, causing Agamemnon and his army to retreat in disarray, fleeing back to the Trojan coast. Menelaus's death rendered the primary justification for the attack on Troy irrelevant, and Agamemnon struggled to find ways to make his brother's army stay and fight for his cause. His authority now questioned, Odysseus, ever the pragmatist, advised Agamemnon to set aside his doubts and summon Achilles to fight once more, suggesting that returning Briseis to him would be the key. Agamemnon reluctantly agreed.
Achilles is one man.
You'll want the girl back.
I haven't touched her.
Where is she?
I gave her to the men.
Though he cruelly mentioned that he had given the girl to his men for their entertainment, a final act of petty cruelty. As the soldiers were about to take advantage of Briseis, Achilles arrived, a whirlwind of righteous fury, and saved her, taking her back to his tent. There, a more reflective, vulnerable side of Achilles emerged, and later that night, Briseis, instead of seeking revenge, found herself falling deeply in love with him, their shared trauma forging an unexpected bond.
Secret. You will never be lovelier than you are now.
The next morning, Odysseus visited Achilles in an attempt to persuade him to fight again for Agamemnon, but Achilles, weary of the war and the endless politics, rejected his proposal, much to Patroclus' dismay. Achilles decided he'd had enough of the war and would leave Troy with Briseis, seeking a life of peace. However, Patroclus, driven by a fierce desire to fight and avenge the deaths of his fellow Greek warriors, could not stand idly by.
Fight for your country, that's the only directive.
After consulting with his advisors, King Priam, despite Hector's doubts about the wisdom of such a move, ordered Hector to reclaim the Trojan coast and drive the Greeks away before dawn. The Trojan army, led by Hector himself, launched a surprise attack on the Greeks on the coast. The invasion, however, united the Greeks, and the Myrmidons, led by a warrior believed to be Achilles, soon joined the battle, turning the tide. In the ensuing fight, Hector easily defeated the man believed to be Achilles in a one-on-one duel, slashing his throat. However, in a moment of heartbreaking realization, he discovered that it was actually Patroclus, his young and experienced cousin, pretending to be Achilles. Seeing the young man agonizing, and to end his suffering, Hector, with a heavy heart, gave Patroclus a dignified death.
Enough for one day.
Both armies, exhausted from the brutal battle, decided to take a temporary break. The silence on the battlefield, a stark contrast to the earlier chaos. Achilles received the devastating news of his cousin's death when the Myrmidons returned to camp. Furious, his grief turning into a blinding rage, Achilles attacked Eudorus and swore vengeance against Hector, a vow that sealed both the fates. Later, fearing what may happen to him soon, Hector, in a poignant moment, revealed a secret passage beneath Troy to his wife and Dermanche's escape. He instructed her to take their son and any survivors out of the city to the mountains if he died and the city was destroyed. A desperate plan for survival.
If I die, you save as many people as you can.
The next day, as Achilles prepared to leave and seek revenge against Hector, Briseis pleaded with him to reconsider. A voice filled with concern, but he ignored her, his mind consumed by vengeance, and departed in his chariot, a lone figure of impending doom. Achilles appeared alone, a terrifying presence, outside Troy, his fury palpable, and Hector was challenged to a duel by him, a challenge that could not be refused. Hector, with a heavy heart, bid farewell to his family, believing that this fight may be his last, and bravely confronted Achilles outside the walls of Troy. Before the fight, Hector, ever the honorable warrior, suggested that the winner should grant the loser all the proper funeral rites, a plea for dignity in death. But Achilles,
Let us pledge that the winner will allow the loser all the proper funeral rituals.
consumed by hatred and grief, rejected this, his only desire to inflict pain.
There are no pacts between lions and men.
A fierce, brutal battle ensued, a clash of titans, with powerful blows exchanged. Using spears and shields, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Soon the use of swords became necessary and the fight became even fiercer. The clashing of steel ringed out strongly, a symphony of death. Achilles already showed signs of advantage, his superhuman strength unwavering, while Hector was visibly tiring, his mortal body pushed to its limits. Priam and Paris watched the fight in despair, their hopes dwindling with each blow, while Helen consoled Andromache, who couldn't bring herself to watch the inevitable. After a fierce, prolonged battle between the two, Hector was wounded in the shoulder, and Achilles, with a final merciless strike, finished him off with his sword. Afterward, in a cruel display of dominance, he dragged Hector's body onto his chariot and set off for the Trojan beach, circling the city walls, while the other Trojans looked on in shock and horror at the loss of their greatest hero, a man who had fought so bravely for them. That day, Troy lost a great man. When Achilles arrived and entered his tent, Briseis, seeing the lifeless body of her cousin, began to cry, her grief overwhelming. That night, King Priam, heartbroken and desperate, sneaked into Achilles' camp, a perilous journey, and pleaded with him to hand over Hector's body so that a proper funeral could be conducted, a final act of respect for his fallen son. Feeling remorseful and sad for his actions, a flicker of humanity returning to him,
We'll meet again soon, my brother.
Achilles went to Hector's body and cried over it, calling him his brother, acknowledging their shared warrior spirit, and saying they would meet again soon. Afterward, he gently placed it on his chariot and promised Priam that the Greeks would not attack Troy for 12 days, allowing Hector's funeral rituals to be performed without interruption. He also allowed Briseis to return to Troy with Priam, a gesture of compassion.
No one will stop you. You have my word.
Agamemnon, enraged by Achilles' secret agreement with Priam, vowed to conquer Troy at any cost, his ambition overriding any sense of honor. Odysseus, ever the cunning strategist, after being distracted by a sculpture of a horse that a fellow soldier was creating for his son, devised a brilliant yet treacherous plan to allow the Greeks to invade Troy during the 12 days of mourning. He had the Greeks build a massive wooden horse, a deceptive peace offering, and hid their ships in a nearby cove, waiting for the opportune moment. When the 12 days of mourning ended, the Trojans discovered the wooden horse on the beach and several Greek bodies in the sand, a staged scene designed to deceive them. Believing that the Greeks had abandoned the shores, a sense of relief washed over the city. Paris, ever suspicious, urged his father to burn the horse immediately.
Father, burn it.
His instincts warning him of danger, but after being advised by one of his counselors that it was left as an offering to the sea god Poseidon, Priam, swayed by superstition, overruled Paris's request and brought the horse into the city, where it was revered as a sign of the end of the war. The entire city celebrated into the night, their joy a tragic prelude to their doom, unaware of the doom hidden within its hollow belly. In the middle of the night, the Greeks who were hidden inside the horse, including the cunning Odysseus and the formidable Achilles, emerged, silent and deadly. They killed the unsuspecting gate guards and opened the massive gates, allowing the rest of the Greek soldiers to pour into the city. The Greek army quickly invaded the city, a torrent of destruction, killing people indiscriminately, setting their homes on fire, and eliminating any Trojan warriors who dared to cross their path. King Priam collapsed in tears as he watched his beautiful city burn before his eyes, his kingdom crumbling around him. Achilles fought his way through the burning city, his primary focus to find Briseis to ensure her safety, while Andromache, with remarkable courage, guided Helen, Paris, and other Trojans through a secret tunnel to safety, a desperate escape. Paris, however, driven by a sense of duty and love, decided to return to Troy to find his father and Briseis, entrusting the sword of Troy to a young boy named Aeneas, with instructions to protect the remaining citizens and find a new home for them, a legacy for the future. He persuaded Helen to continue the journey with him, promising to come back for her, a promise he intended to keep. The Greeks managed to make their way to King Priam's palace, where he was fatally struck from behind by Agamemnon, a final ignoble end for the king.
I wanted you to watch your city burn.
Achilles finally found Briseis, but Agamemnon, seeing her, grabbed her and stated his intentions to take her to Greece as his slave, a cruel fate. However, as he uttered these words, she used a concealed dagger and fatally stabbed him in the neck, thus killing Agamemnon, a shocking act of defiance. She was then attacked by the guards, but Achilles arrived at that crucial moment and saved her, his protective instincts overriding everything else. Shortly afterward, Paris arrived, also searching for Briseis, and seeing Achilles with her, seized the opportunity to avenge his brother's death. He shot an arrow into Achilles' heel, his only vulnerable spot, and then several more into his body, a barrage of deadly projectiles. Despite Briseis' desperate pleas for him to stop, as Achilles was dying, he bid farewell to Briseis and asked her to go and escape with Paris to save herself. A final act of selfless love. Even though she was deeply saddened by Achilles' tragic fate, she decided to go as he requested, and he watched her escape with Paris, his last sight. When the other Greek soldiers arrived, the great warrior Achilles finally passed away at dawn, his legend cemented in death. Andromache and her baby Helen, Paris, Briseis, and the other surviving Trojans who managed to escape can be seen heading through the mountains, a long, arduous journey to an uncertain future. Briseis, with a heavy heart, looked back with sadness at the distant smoke that remained of her beloved city, a symbol of all they had lost, but soon continued her journey with the others to start their lives anew elsewhere. Troy had fallen, but its story and the legends of its heroes would live on forever. That's it for today's recap. If you want more epic stories like this, drop a comment, hit like, and of course, subscribe so you're here for the next adventure.